The hotel confirmation email was still open on my phone when my mother called to tell me how proud she was of me. I sat in the parking garage of my office building, engine running, heater going because it was one of those grey November mornings in Columbus where the cold gets into your joints before you even step outside. I had just gotten off a call with our regional VP. I had just been told officially that I was being promoted to Senior Operations Manager, 31 years old, the youngest in the company's Midwest division to hold that title. I should have felt on top of the world. Instead, I was sitting in a parking garage staring at a hotel reservation I had not made. The Grand View Lodge, 3 nights, check-in, Friday, under my name. Charged to the credit card I kept for work travel and emergencies. I had not booked it. I had not authorized it, and I already knew without having to ask exactly who had. Let me back up. My name is Wren. I grew up in a small suburb outside Columbus, the eldest of 3 kids, and from the time I was about 19, I was the one people called when things went sideways. Not because I volunteered, because I was there and I was capable. And in my family, those 2 things were enough to make something your responsibility. My brother is 4 years younger than me. He's the kind of person who has always moved through the world, assuming that things will work out. Usually because someone else is quietly making sure they do. He is not a bad person. I want to be clear about that. But he is someone who has never once looked at a bill and felt his stomach drop, because he has never had to. My sister-in-law is a different story. She and my brother got together when he was 24 and she was 22, and from the beginning she had opinions about how things should be done. The wedding, the house, the lifestyle. She had grown up in a family where money was discussed openly and spent freely, and she had married into a family where the person with the most money was quietly expected to cover the gap between what everyone wanted and what everyone could actually afford. That person was me. I want to be honest about my own role in this, because I think that matters. I did not set hard limits early. When my brother needed a security deposit for his first apartment, I wired it to him and told him to pay me back when he could. He didn't, and I didn't push it. When my sister-in-law wanted to throw my parents a 40th anniversary dinner at a nice restaurant downtown, she asked me to take the lead on the cost. I did because saying no felt like being the kind of person I didn't want to be. When my parents needed a new roof 2 winters ago, my dad mentioned it once. Just mentioned it. And I wrote the check. I told myself it was what you do for family. I told myself I was lucky to be in a position to help. I told myself a lot of things. The total, if I ever sat down and added it all up, was somewhere north of $30,000 over 8 years. I know that because I did eventually sit down and add it up. I did it one night last October, alone at my kitchen table with a glass of wine and my old bank statements, and when the number came out, I just stared at it for a long time. $30,000. And not a single person in my family had ever acknowledged it. Not once. Not to thank you, that felt like they understood the weight of it. Not an offer to repay even a fraction. Just a smooth continuation of the assumption that Wren would handle it, because Wren always handled it. I had been promoted twice in 3 years. I drove a used Honda. I brought lunch to work 4 days out of 5. I had a 401k I was actually funding and a savings account I was actually building, because I had learned young that no one else was going to do it for me. And somehow, the more responsibly I managed my own money, the more my family seemed to feel entitled to it. When I got the promotion, my mother cried on the phone. She said she was so proud of me. She said, "You have worked so hard, baby." And she meant it. I believe she genuinely meant it. Then she said, "We should celebrate, a real celebration. Your father and I were thinking a weekend away, somewhere nice." I said that sounded lovely. I said I'd look at my calendar. I did not look at my calendar. I got busy with the transition period at work, the new responsibilities, the handoff meetings. 2 weeks went by. Then I got the hotel confirmation email, the Grand View Lodge, 2 suites, 3 nights, Friday through Monday, my name on the reservation, my credit card. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring, cheerful, and before I could say anything she said, "Oh good, you saw. Your brother found it. It's supposed to be beautiful. We figured since it was your celebration, we'd let you take care of the booking, and your sister-in-law's thinking we could do a nice dinner Saturday night. There's a steakhouse nearby. I said, Mom, I didn't book this. There was a pause. Well, your brother did it. He used your card on file. The one you used for Christmas last year when you ordered those gifts. He figured you wouldn't mind. I stood in that parking garage for a long time after I hung up. The thing I keep coming back to when I think about that moment is that I was not even shocked. I was something worse than shocked. I was tired. Bone tired, in a way that had nothing to do with my job or the hour of the morning. I was tired of being the person whose credit card was on file. Tired of being the one who wouldn't mind. Tired of a family that celebrated my success by immediately finding a way to spend it. I canceled the hotel reservation. I called the Grandview Lodge directly, explained there had been an unauthorized charge, and they reversed it without issue. Then I sat with the question of what to do next. My mother called back 3 times that afternoon. I let them go to voicemail. My brother texted, Hey, Mom said there's an issue with the hotel. Can you call her? My sister-in-law texted, Wren, we've been planning this for weeks. The kids are so excited. Please don't make this a whole thing. That text is the one I keep coming back to. Don't make this a whole thing. As though I had done something. As though canceling an unauthorized charge on my own credit card was the dramatic act in this scenario. I called my brother that evening. I kept my voice even. I asked him to explain to me how he had decided to use my credit card without asking me. He said he figured I'd want to treat the family. I said, Did you ask me? He said, I mean, no, but... I said, Then you used my card without my permission. That's not a gray area. He got quiet. Then he said what I had been hearing in various forms my entire adult life. You're the one who's doing well. We're not asking for much. It's just a hotel. It's $460 a night, I said. 2 suites, 3 nights. That's over $2,000 before the steakhouse dinner. He said, Wren, come on. I said, I'm going to need you to hear me say this clearly. I did not agree to pay for this trip. I did not agree to host this celebration. And I did not give you permission to use my card. He said, So you're not coming. I said, I didn't say that. I said I'm not paying for everyone else's rooms. What followed was 3 days of the most exhausting family communication I have ever experienced. And I grew up in a house where my parents communicated primarily through sighing heavily and leaving relevant documents on the kitchen counter. My mother called to explain that she and my father were on a fixed income and that it was a lot to ask them to cover a hotel. I said I understood and that I would be happy to look at options in a lower price range. She said the Grandview Lodge was already what everyone had in mind. My sister-in-law sent me a 3-paragraph text about how I had changed since my promotion and how success was making me selfish. I read it twice. The second time, I felt something go very quiet and very clear inside me, the way a room feels after a sound has finally stopped. My father did not call or text. On the 4th day, he drove to my apartment. I live on the 3rd floor of a building in the short north, and I have a small balcony that looks out over the street. I was sitting out there with coffee when I heard the buzzer. I knew it was him before I looked at the intercom. He is 63 years old. He has my same dark eyes and my same habit of going still when something matters. He sat down across from me at my little balcony table, and for a moment we just looked at each other. He said, Your mother is upset. I said, I know. He said, Your brother shouldn't have used your card without asking. That was wrong. He paused. But this trip matters to your mother. This promotion, you being recognized, she wants to celebrate you. We all do. I said, Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to really hear the question. He nodded. Over the last 8 years, do you know approximately how much money I've given this family? Not lent. Given. He looked uncomfortable. I know we've leaned on you. $30,000, I said. I know because I added it up. The roof, Derek's, my brother's security deposits, the anniversary dinner. the car repair for Mom last spring, the trip to Florida 2 years ago that was also supposed to be my treat. $30,000. My father looked at his hands. I am not saying I regret helping, I said. I'm saying I would like to be asked. I would like it to be a choice. I would like to not come home from one of the best days of my career to find out my credit card has been charged for a hotel I didn't book. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You're right. The card thing was wrong." Another pause. "But I hope you'll still come. Whatever you decide about the cost." It was the most my father had ever given me in a conversation like that. It was not an apology. It was not an acknowledgement of the larger pattern. But it was something, and I held on to it. I decided I would go. I would pay for my own room one night, and I would celebrate my promotion on my own terms. I booked a standard room at the Grandview Lodge, not a suite, for Friday night only. I paid for it myself. $210, tax included. I packed a bag, drove out Friday afternoon, and checked in at the front desk while my family was still en route. The lodge was genuinely beautiful. Rolling hills, November bare trees, a fire pit out back that the staff lit every evening. In another life, in another family, it would have been exactly the right kind of celebration. My parents arrived at 5. My brother and sister-in-law and their 2 kids arrived at 5:30. We had drinks by the fire. My sister-in-law was brittle and bright in the way she got when she was managing her feelings, all sharp compliments and redirected conversation. My brother was quiet. My mother kept touching my arm and telling me how proud she was. It should have been fine. It almost was. Saturday morning, my sister-in-law presented a printed itinerary. A group brunch, 11 o'clock. Spa packages at 2. The lodge's package deal for 6 people. Dinner at the steakhouse at 7. The spa package was listed as $185 per person. I looked at it and said mildly, "Is this what everyone's doing, or is this optional?" My sister-in-law said, "I figured we'd all go. It's your celebration." "I'm happy to cover my own," I said. "And the dinner. I'll cover my own dinner, and I'm glad to treat Mom and Dad." Her expression shifted. "I thought you were covering the weekend." "I'm not," I said. "I said I'd come. I said I'd come. I said I'd cover my own costs." My brother said, "Wren, I'm going to get some coffee," I said. "Take a walk. Think about what spa treatment I want." I did not go to the spa. I walked the grounds for an hour, called my best friend, and described the itinerary. She said without hesitation, "Do not pay for 6 people's spa day." I didn't. Brunch was tense. Not visibly. My family is skilled at surface comm, but I could feel the recalibration happening in real time, everyone quietly reassessing what they had assumed about this weekend. The kids were oblivious and delightful. I sat between my nephew and my father and spent most of brunch talking about my nephew's obsession with building robots out of cardboard, and for a little while, it felt almost like what it was supposed to be. Dinner at the steakhouse was when things shifted. The restaurant was attached to the lodge, a proper steakhouse with white tablecloths and the wine list that started at $65. My sister-in-law had made the reservation for 8. My parents, my brother and his wife, their 2 kids, my mother's sister who I did not know was coming, and me, my mother's sister. I had not seen in 4 years. She ordered the ribeye and a glass of the second most expensive Cabernet. The kids each got the steak dinner with the add-on lobster tail because, as my sister-in-law explained to the server, they're celebrating. When the check came, the server set it in the center of the table. My brother picked it up. He looked at it briefly. He set it back down in a way that was very clearly pointed at me. My sister-in-law said, "It's your night, Wren." My mother looked at her hands. My father looked at the fire. My mother's aunt said brightly, "What a lovely dinner this has been." The total was $840 before tip. I looked at the check for a moment. I thought about the parking garage in Columbus. I thought about $30,000. I thought about the hotel confirmation email. I thought about don't make this a whole thing. I picked up the check. I calculated my portion. My entree, my one glass of wine, half the appetizer I had shared with my dad, came to just under $90. I put my card down on top of the bill and flagged to the server. I'd like to split off my portion, I said. I gave him the $90 figure, told him what I'd ordered. He nodded, no hesitation. Restaurants do this all the time. And came back 3 minutes later with a separate slip. I signed it. I tucked my card back in my wallet. I set the remaining bill back in the center of the table. The silence that followed was different from the surface silence of the past 2 days. This was the silence of a room where the furniture has been rearranged and everyone is trying to figure out where to step. My sister-in-law said, "Wren, you're serious." I said, "I paid my portion." My brother said my name again, just my name. My father said nothing. My mother looked up. She opened her mouth. She closed it. I said, "I'm going to head back to my room. Happy to keep celebrating tomorrow before I drive home. But I'm not covering $800 for a dinner I didn't plan and wasn't asked about." I put my napkin on the table and I left. I did not run. I did not feel a rush of triumph. I walked through the steakhouse, past the hostess stand, through the lobby of the lodge and up to my room. And I sat on the edge of the bed, and I put my face in my hands for a minute. Not crying, just stopping. My phone started going in about 10 minutes. My brother first, then my sister-in-law, then my mother. I read the texts, but I didn't respond. My sister-in-law said this was humiliating, in front of the kids, in front of the kids, in front of Aunt Carol. My brother said, "You could have at least talked to me first." My mother said, "I don't understand why you're doing this." I sat with those messages for a while. I thought about what I could say in response. I thought about the roof and the security deposits and the anniversary dinner. I thought about 8 years of being the family safety net, quietly, without acknowledgement, until I had become so reliable that no one even thought to ask anymore. Then I put my phone face down on the nightstand and I went to sleep. In the morning, the lodge breakfast buffet was included in the room rate, and I went down at 8 and got eggs and coffee and a table by the window where I could see the frost on the grass. My father came down at 8:30. He saw me and came over without hesitation. He sat down. He poured coffee from the carafe. He said, "They figured out the bill last night. Your brother put most of it on his card." I said, "Good." He said, "Your mother she'll be okay. She needs time." I said, "I know." He said, "I'm sorry we've leaned on you the way we have. That's not nothing. What you said on your balcony. I've been thinking about it." He wrapped both hands around his mug. $30,000 is not nothing. It was the first time anyone in my family had said that out loud. That number, acknowledging it the way you acknowledge a real thing. I felt something loosen in my chest that I had not known was tight. I said, "I love you. I'm not going anywhere, but things are going to be different." He nodded. He didn't argue. He didn't make promises he wouldn't keep either, and I respected him for that. I drove home Sunday afternoon under a flat white sky, the Ohio landscape flattening out around me, bare trees and frozen fields and the long, straight roads that have always felt to me like the definition of going somewhere on your own terms. I had a podcast on for a while, then I turned it off and just drove in silence. I wasn't sad exactly. I wasn't triumphant either. I was something quieter than both of those things. I had spent 8 years trying to be generous enough that no one would ever be disappointed in me. I had confused generosity with availability. I had made myself so consistently there, so consistently capable, that I had turned my own competence into a liability. The night before, sitting on the edge of that hotel bed, I had expected to feel guilty. That had been my pattern for so long. Do something for myself, then spend 3 days unwinding the guilt. But the guilt didn't come. Instead, there was just this unfamiliar quiet, like a room that has been cleared out and cleaned, and all the surfaces can breathe. A few weeks later, I sent my brother a Venmo request for the hotel I had cancelled on his behalf, the one he had booked on my card without asking. The original charge he had planned to let me carry, $2,240. I sent the request with no note. He didn't pay it. I didn't expect him to, not yet, but I left it there, sitting in the app, a small, accurate record of what had happened. My mother and I talk on Sundays now like we always have. The conversation around the trip has mostly faded into the category of things my family processes by not processing. That's okay. I have stopped needing them to name things the same way I name them. The promotion came with a meaningful raise. I put half of it into my savings account and half into a home down payment fund I had been building for 2 years. I booked myself a solo trip to Portland for March. I did not mention it to my family in advance. I had not punished anyone. I had not burned anything down. I had simply, for the first time in 8 years, decided what I was willing to carry and set the rest down. There's a moment at that steakhouse table I keep coming back to. Not the silence after I set the check down, not my sister-in-law's face, but the 3 seconds before I flagged the server. That small pause where I could have done what I'd always done, taken the bill, smiled through it, told myself it was fine. I didn't, and what I've been sitting with since is why it took me 8 years to get there. I think about what my father said on my balcony. $30,000 is not nothing, and I realize that the problem was never really the money. The money was just a clearest measure of something else. I had spent 8 years confusing love with unlimited availability. I told myself that being generous meant never saying no, that showing up for your family meant absorbing whatever they decided to hand you. I had made myself so consistently reliable that I stopped being a person to them and became a resource. And I had let it happen. That is the part I had to sit with longest. There's a version of this story where I'm the villain, where a woman who makes good money refuses to treat her family at a celebratory dinner. I've read that version in my sister-in-law's texts, but the honest version is that I had been treating them for 8 years without being asked, without being thanked in any way that acknowledged the real cost, and without once being consulted about whether I wanted to. Generosity that gets taken for granted long enough stops feeling like generosity and starts feeling like a tax. The ethical failure wasn't mine. It was the quiet assumption, held by everyone around me, unchallenged for years, that my success existed to be spent by people who hadn't earned it. What I understand now, that I didn't at 23, is that real integrity runs in both directions. It means showing up for the people you love. It also means being honest when the terms of that showing up have become one-sided to the point of harm. Letting something continue that you know is wrong, because confronting it is uncomfortable, because you don't want to seem selfish, because you'll build a whole identity around being the capable one. That's not kindness. That's avoidance, dressed up as virtue. The harder thing, the thing that actually required something from me, was the clarity. Sitting down with my bank statements and doing the math. Not looking away from the number, knowing what was true, and then being willing to say it out loud to my father, in plain words, without softening it into something more comfortable. That kind of honest accounting of your own finances, your own patterns, your own complicity in how things got this way, takes more out of you than writing a check ever did. And then there's the part that doesn't get talked about enough, continuing. After the hard conversation, after the uncomfortable dinner, after the texts you don't respond to, getting up the next morning, going down to the breakfast buffet, sitting with your father in ordinary silence, not running from your family, not punishing them, not needing them to fully understand before you can move forward, just deciding what you will carry going forward, and carrying only that. I booked my trip to Portland. I didn't announce it. I just went. That's the whole lesson, really. Not a dramatic exit, not a speech, just a woman who finally decided that her own life was worth protecting with the same energy she'd spent protecting everyone else's.